This is Scott the Fix-It Guy. Today we're dealing with the LG washer-dryer combination that won't drain. It's giving the OE error, and this is due to a faulty pump. They don't last very long on the LG machines, but it's pretty easy to change. So first thing we'll do is make sure it's unplugged, and we're going to take off this bottom panel. It just pulls right out. You can maybe even use a standard head screwdriver to pry it a little bit. We're going to take the two power connectors off of the pump. They just slip right off. We tilted the machine back to about 45 degrees up against the back wall, and that's so we can bail out the water that's remaining that didn't pump out. And also this takes the water away from the pump. If it's down horizontally, then you'd have to put a clamp in or something, or it'd be a real mess. But by tilting it back and bailing out the water, then there's very little water that will come out at the pump. So makes it a lot easier. So we got all the water out, and then the next thing we need to do is just remove 3 screws that are holding the pump onto the pump housing. So we're going to use a long Phillips head screwdriver, probably just a regular screwdriver. Phillips screwdriver is better than the power one. The power one's okay, but it's a little unwieldy. So just probably a regular Phillips head screwdriver would work. So there's just 3 of them. There's one up here at about the 1 o'clock position, and there's one at the very bottom at the 6 o'clock position, and there's one on the left side at about the 10 o'clock position. And here's what the pump looks like. They're pretty cheap. They're about $25 to $30. You can get them on Amazon. They don't last very long, unfortunately, but they're pretty cheap to purchase. I'm going to remove 3 little screws from the front too, and that'll allow me to kind of bend the pump around so it's easier for me to get the screwdriver on the 3 screws. It's pretty cool though. This procedure allows you to do all this without having to remove the 2 hoses. So all we did is we removed the power connectors and we removed these mounting screws so we can kind of get the pump bent around, and then we're going to get the Phillips head screwdriver in there and zip out those 3 screws. And then you can pretty easily just pull the pump right off. What we found on this pump was that the impeller was kind of loose on the motor shaft. So I think something hit the impeller, like a little rock or a paper clip or something. And then the shaft would spin, but the impeller wasn't really spinning, so it wasn't pushing the water. Pretty common problem. So we're just moving the pump around to get the best view of those 3 screws. And then again, you can use just your handheld one, or you can use these power Phillips head screwdrivers to zip out those 3 screws. This is a Phillips head number 2. Usually there's coming in 3 sizes. 1's really small, 2's medium, 3's really big. So this is just a normal size, number 2. So we got the 3 screws out, got the pump out. We're going to inspect the impeller, and it just seems to be kind of loose on the motor shaft, like it wobbles around, and that's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to spin but not wobble. So we're going to just take here's the model number on the new one. We're going to take this little plastic housing off of the old one, mainly just by pulling it off. You may have to pry it off a little bit with a standard head screwdriver, and then just push the plastic protective housing over the new motor. It'll kind of click into place. Pretty easy to do. And then we're going to just get that new pump put into position on the pump housing. Before doing that, I just reached in with my finger to make sure that the pump housing was clear of any debris. There wasn't any more little rocks or anything there that would cause the same problem. So we got the new protective cover on. You're going to get the 3 screws in position. So one at the bottom at 6 o'clock, and then one at about 2 o'clock and one at about 10 o'clock. Those are the ones that are holding the pump tightly onto the housing, so it's a watertight fit. There's a little rubber seal there too that helps to create a watertight fit. So now we're just going to reach in and make sure that there's no debris there in the housing. We're going to put the pump in position, and it has 3 little protrusions that come out of the motor that help it to lock into the housing. There's 3 little holes in the housing. Actually, there's more holes in the housing, so you can kind of move the pump almost around anywhere you want. But the flat part of the motor should be pointing up toward 12 o'clock ideally. It's not that critical though. It could be off at a 45-degree angle. It would still work. So we're going to get it in those little lugs in their holes in the housing. And then we're going to zip in one of those screws to kind of hold it so we can then get in the other 2. And just take your time. This part's a little bit tricky because it's hard to see what you're doing. When I did the screw in the back, the one at the 10 o'clock position, I actually just used my right hand to feel where the screw was, and then I guided the Phillips head screwdriver arm just by feel and then tightened it up because I couldn't really see it. And that works fine. Sometimes when you're doing appliance repair, you can't really see where the screw is, and you just use your other hand to feel. You push the Phillips head screwdriver onto the screw just by feeling it, and then you tighten it up. And then once you get those 3 screws tight, you have a nice watertight connection, and then you can put the 3 mounting screws back in that hold it onto the frame. And then we just put the 2 power connectors back on. They're just spade connectors. They just slip right back on really easily. And then we're essentially done. We just have to put the front panel back on. So this whole procedure would probably take you only about half an hour, and the pump's only going to cost you, with shipping, I'd say the highest it would be was $40. And as long as you empty your pockets, you don't have any kind of little metal or rocks in there, you probably won't have to replace your pump again. But the way we know we have a problem with this is that the machine won't drain, and also we probably get the OE error. And the procedure on the regular washer, not the washer-dryer combination, is a little bit different. On the washer-dryer combination, it's pretty easy because it has this panel that you can just pull off and gets you right to the pump. So we got those 3 screws back on. We're going to set it back down nice and flat. And now we give it a test. Set it to drain and spin. Sounds good. We're just going to look for any leak. Make sure there's nothing leaking out. And that's it. Got a good running machine again. $40 later, half an hour of our time, and we're back in business. I'm just putting a little water in there to test it further, but it's doing great. So thanks so much for watching. I hope this helped you, and please subscribe when you get a chance.